Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for another video. What we're going to be doing today is we are going to be doing our week 1 college football best bets. So we're going to mainly be focusing on the betting portion for college football week 1. We're going to look at the spreads, the money lines, and the over-unders for every single top 25 game for week 1 of college football. College football is finally back. We had week 0 last weekend. We have week 1 coming up this week, and there's some really good matchups. There's some ranked on ranked matchups. There's some massive spread matchups where we have a ranked team playing an FCS team. But go ahead, hit that like button and subscribe. If you have any comments, drop them below and I will respond every week. We're going to be going over every college game and any NFL game, looking at the spreads, the money lines, and the over-unders. But let's go ahead and get things started. Let's start running our way through these ranked matchups for the top 25 teams. We're kicking things off Thursday, August 29th at 7 p.m. on the ACC network. We have Western Carolina playing NC State. We have Vegas has NC State favored by 32.5, so a pretty good spread there. The over-under is 60.5. Obviously, with Western Carolina, they can actually score some points. They're not a bad team. They have an offense. They have no defense. For NC State, welcome to the top 25. This is a very stacked roster. They don't have a bad schedule. A lot of people are kind of picking them as a dark horse team to potentially make it to the ACC championship. Their offense is not the greatest, but they have Grayson McCall transferring over from Coastal Carolina. He could potentially be the difference maker. He can throw, he can run. They have Conception there, who's kind of a hybrid wide receiver. He can take snaps, he can catch the ball vertically, short, play the slot. Dorian has a really good roster, physical defense, physical run game. Look for NC State to win this game. I have them winning 48-10, so I have them covering the spread, but I will be going with the under. I just don't think that it's going to be a high-scoring game. The next matchup at 8 p.m. on the SEC network, we have Murray State playing number 11 Missouri. This is another massive spread here, 46.5 point favorites for the Missouri Tigers. The over-under is 57.5. Missouri has one of the better teams coming back from last year. They return almost everyone from a team that had a top 20 offense and a top 20 defense, and they have the easiest schedule in the ACC. They can almost practically sleepwalk to a 10-2 season, and they're kind of potentially a dark horse candidate to make the playoffs. Looking at their stats from last year, they averaged 32.5 points. They gave up 20.8 points. They did lose Blake Baker, who was the defensive coordinator, to LSU. Cook is back. They have a good running back depth. They have good wide receivers. Murray State, they're just not good at anything. They have a pathetic offense, a bad defense. I have Missouri winning this one 52-10. So I do not have them covering that spread, but I will be going with the over. The next matchup we're going to look at 8 p.m. on ESPN, we have Lindenwood versus number 22 Kansas. Kansas comes in here. They're 45-point favorites. The over-under 58.5. So looking at Lindenwood, they don't have a good offense. They don't have a good defense. Obviously, they're FCS. There's a massive talent gap here. Kansas has a 99% chance to win this game. Kansas potentially has the best offense in the Big 12. As long as Daniel stays healthy, he's never played a full season. If he's healthy, he can run, he can throw, he can do a lot. They have a top 3 running back in the nation, Neal. They're going to be running the ball downhill. They have a physical team, well-coached team. They averaged 35 last year. They gave up 26. Look for Kansas to win this one. I have them winning it pretty convincingly, winning 58-10. I have them covering that spread, and I'm going with the over. The next matchup we're going to look at 9 p.m. on ESPN, we have Southern Utah versus number 12 Utah. Utah, 38-point favorites here. The over-under 53.5. Utah, a 98.3% chance to win this game. Southern Utah, obviously we know who the best team is in the state of Utah. Southern Utah averaged 32 last season, gave up 24. Utah did not have a good offense last season, but Cam Rising is back at the quarterback position. This is a very experienced starter. This is probably his 15th year playing college football. He's going to lead this team. This offense is going to be a lot better than it was last season. And we know Utah under Kyle Whittingham, the third longest tenured coach, they always have a good physical defense. Look for them to shut Southern Utah down. I have them winning this one 42-31. 5-6. So I don't have them covering the spread, and I'm also going with the under. I just don't consider Utah a offensive juggernaut, but they could obviously score 60 this game. But I just have maybe Rising being a little rusty since it's been almost 2 years since he played college football last. The next matchup we're going to look at, we're now moving on to Friday, August 30th at 7 p.m. on ESPN. We have Temple versus number 16, Oklahoma. Oklahoma, 42.5-point favorites over under 57.5. Oklahoma, 98.7% chance to win this game. Temple's not really good at anything. Their offense is almost as bad as Iowa's offense, and their defense is almost as bad as USC's defense last season. Oklahoma, very well-rounded team. Yes, Dylan Gabriel did transfer to Oregon, but Arnold is going to completely pick up the mantle there. Five-star quarterback is going to pick up where he left off in the bowl game. They have an offensive line, quarterback, running back, wide receivers. They have a very good defense. Brent Venables has been working the portal and recruiting top 10 in both of those. Very talented team. They're moving to the SEC, so schedule is going to get a lot more difficult. I have Oklahoma winning this one 48-10. Pulling the starters a little early. Yes, they could hit the 50s. I would not be surprised. But it's Arnold's really his first season as the full-time starter. So I do not have them covering the spread, but I will be going with the over. The next matchup we're going to look at 12 p.m. on ABC. We're now moving to our Saturday, August 31st matchups. Potentially the game of the weekend. Number 14, Clemson versus number 1, Georgia Bulldogs. This game is going to be in Atlanta. If you want to consider that a neutral site, Georgia, an 82.4% chance to win this game. You have the Bulldogs favored by 13.5. That over under 48.5. This is two top 10 defenses. Georgia with the number 1 or 2 overall roster. Clemson, a top 10 roster. They're mainly going to be a defensive team. They had a very good defense last season. Good line, good linebackers. The biggest question is, in Riley's second season as the offensive coordinator, how improved will Klubnik be at quarterback? You still have Moffa at wide receiver, Moffa at running back, and a better wide receiver core this season. Their defense should keep this game close early on, potentially give them a shot up to halftime. But after halftime, I think Georgia's going to start to pull away. There is a massive talent gap from number 14 to the number 1 team. I have Georgia winning this one 30-17. So I do not have them covering that spread, and I'm going with the under. But I think that spread is going to move down over the next 2 to 3 days. So I think it's probably going to finish around 11.5 or 12.5. So if that's the case, then I would have them covering the spread. The next matchup we're going to look at 12 p.m. on Fox, we have number 8 Penn State versus West Virginia. West Virginia was like a 9-win team last season. Props to Neil Brown. They can run the ball. Green, they have 3 guys who could potentially have the prospect of running for 1,000 yards. A very good offensively run-focused team. Then you have Penn State. Drew Waller's there. They have a new offensive coordinator going to completely revamp this offense. It's going to be more of a multiple look. Drew Waller and one of the best running back rooms in the entire nation. They had a top 5 offense last season. The number 1 yards per game. A top 5 defense last season, the number 1 yards per game defense in the nation. Yes, Manny Diaz has gone to Duke, but Allen stepping in, they're going to be just as aggressive. Their D-line is stacked. So it's West Virginia's running strength versus Penn State's defensive line strength. Which one is going to win? West Virginia is a tough place to play. You have Penn State favored by 8, the over under 51.5. I have Penn State winning this one 33-20, covering the spread, and I'm going with the over. This game could potentially be a whole lot closer, but I think Penn State's going to own the second half with their physical style of game they play. Next matchup we're looking at 12 p.m. on the Big Ten Network. We have Illinois State versus number 25, Iowa. Iowa, 22.5-point favorite. The over-under, 40.5. The biggest question mark the last 2 seasons was, can Iowa cover a spread? They always go under on the over-under because their offense has been a complete laughingstock for the last 5 seasons. They were 131st out of 132 teams last year, and they still won 10 games. Kirk Ferentz and his team, They know how to play defense. Top 10 defense every season, but they're bottom 5 offensively in the entire country every year. He did fire his son. His offense can obviously only get better. They were second to last in the country last season, so hopefully they can move up. If they just have a top 70 offense, they are a playoff caliber team, but their schedule is actually not difficult this season. Look for them to win this game. I have them winning 35-3. I have them covering the spread, but I'm going with the under just because for some reason they always go under. But we'll have to see how they play this year. Next matchup we're looking at 12:45, so kind of that odd 12:45 SEC game. On the SEC network, we have Chattanooga versus number 15 Tennessee. Tennessee favored by 38.5, over under 56.5. I think that's kind of a low over-under for a Tennessee-Chattanooga game. I think Tennessee is going to blow them out, and I feel pretty comfortable saying that. But Tennessee, a top 30 offense last year, a top 30 defense. You have Josh Heupel, you have Nico, Squirrel White, a well-led defense, a really good run game. They're going to, obviously, there's a massive talent advantage here. Tennessee's going to win this one 55-10. I have them covering the spread, and I'm going with the over. Next matchup we're looking at 12:40. The next matchup at 1, we have Oklahoma State versus the Jackrabbits, one of the best FCS teams moving over to the FBS. Oklahoma State here. This is kind of a tough one. Oklahoma comes into this game, they're 9.5-point favorites. The over-under 53.5. You have Oklahoma State with Ollie Gordon, the best running back in the entire nation, the Doak Award winner, 1,700 yards last season, 21 touchdowns. But the Jackrabbits, do not sleep on them. They are a very good team. Look at their stats last year, 37.3 points per game, 9.3 points given up per game. Yes, that might have been at the FCS level, but it really doesn't matter. That's a well-coached. They are the best team from that level. They're going to play hard. They're going to play competitively. If you overlook them, you're going to get caught off guard. Even though Oklahoma State should be the more physical team, this is a potential upset game, potentially, but I have Oklahoma State getting the win. They do have a top 10 experienced quarterback, Mike Endy. He's one of the most underappreciated coaches. I have them winning this one 30-24, so I do not have them covering the spread, and I am also going to be going with the over, though, just barely. The next matchup we're going to look at 3:30 p.m. on CBS, we have Akron versus number 2 Ohio State. Ohio State massive favorites here, 48.5. The over-under 58.5. Ohio State, Will Howard's in, Quinton Junkins is in, along with Henderson. They have Egbuka. They have what a lot of people are saying is the number 1 defense in the country. 8 starters back on defense from a team that finished number 3 last season. Their defense is going to get after it. You add in Chip Kelly as the offensive coordinator, one of the greatest offensive minds ever. But this is our first chance to see Will Howard in Chip Kelly's offensive scheme. What is he going to do with this immense amount of talent? He's honestly never coached a team with this much talent on it before. Look for Ohio State to cruise to an easy win here. 57-7. I have them covering that spread, and I will be going with the over. The next matchup we're looking at 3:30 p.m. on ESPN, Colorado State versus number 4 Texas. Texas fresh off of their Final Four appearance last season. Quinn Ewers is back. They do have to replace Worthy, Mitchell, a lot of their defensive line stars, but this is obviously a top 5, top 10 roster easily. They had a top 20 offense last season, top 20 defense. Steve Sarkisian is calling plays. They are at home. Colorado State can sometimes score some points, but they do give up a lot of points. Texas, 32-point favorites, over under 60.5. I have Texas winning 37-17, so I do not have them covering the spread, and I'm going with the under in this one. Next one at 3:30 p.m. on ABC, number 19 Miami visiting Florida Gators. Miami favored 2.5. The over-under 53.5. With this Miami, with them being favored, they were pretty much the underdogs the entire offseason. They've only now became a slight favorite, but this game is virtually a pick 'em. It's going to be close. It's going to be physical. In the swamp, tough place to play, but Miami is built for it. They added Cam Ward. They added Damian Martinez. They have Brown. They have Restrepo. They have a stacked defensive line and linebacker core. Some new safeties playing, so that could be a weakness. And they have the air raid. Coming down to the swamp to Gainesville, Billy Napier, his seat is on fire. He's feeling the pressure. They must win this game. They have Graham Mertz. They have Wilson Williams. They do have a good roster. They just have a brutal schedule. But if they want to make a bowl game, they must win this game. A lot of people picking Florida. Even though Miami's favored by Vegas on the ESPN predictor, Florida has a 57.6% chance to win. So a lot of people are still going with Florida to get the win. I have Miami winning 34-24. I have them covering the spread, and I'm going with the over. The next matchup at 7 p.m. on ESPN, we have Western Kentucky versus number 5 Alabama. Saban is retired. Kalen DeBoer is in with his high-flying offense. He's completely restacked this team through the portal and through recruiting. ESPN has him as the number 1 overall roster in the country, blue chip-wise. Bama, they're favored 31.5 points, the over-under 59.5. This is potentially going to be Alabama just lighting it up on Western Kentucky, but Western Kentucky can actually score. They give up a lot of points. They run the air raid. This is Alabama's new game in this new system. How will it look? There could be a couple hiccups there. We don't know yet because we haven't seen it, but I have Alabama winning 45-13. I do not have them covering the spread. Well, actually, that would be 43-36. Yeah, so they are covering the spread, but I will be going with the under. The next matchup we're going to look at 7 p.m. on ESPN, we have Furman versus number 6 Ole Miss. Ole Miss, the number 1 transfer portal team. You have Jackson Dart. You have a stacked team, running backs, offensive line, wide receiver, a revamped defense. They brought in a lot of transfers on the defensive side. This is Lane Kiffin's season. If there was a time to make the playoffs, this is it. This team is built. They threw all of their chips in to make the playoffs this year. They're 42-point favorites, the over-under 60.5. I have Ole Miss cruising to the win, 58-6, covering the spread, and I'm going with the over. The next matchup at 7 p.m. on ESPN, we have UT Martin versus number 18 Kansas State. Kansas, 37-point favorites, over under 56.5. Kansas State, very stacked team. They are having to replace the offensive coordinator, but they're promoting from in-house, so the offense is going to stay the same. Everything should continue to flow. Will Howard's gone. Avery steps in at quarterback, the highest recruited quarterback they've ever had. They play physical defense, sound defense, very well-coached team, very solid offense. Look for them to cruise here. I have them winning 48-9. I have them covering the spread, and I'm going with the over. The next matchup is another massive spread at 7:30 p.m. on the Big Ten Network. It sounds odd to say, but Oregon in the Big Ten. I have Idaho playing number 3 Oregon Ducks. Oregon, 43.5-point favorites, the over-under 62.5. For some reason, it just seems like Oregon's going to cover that easily. As long as everything flows, everything should be good. Dan Lanning, very talented team, top 10 offense, top 10 defense last season. Bo Nix is off to the NFL, and you have Dylan Gabriel transferring over. That should be a smooth transition. To me, they're very similar players. It just seems like it fits for some reason, and he's also the odds-on favorite to win the Heisman. Oregon's going to light this one up. I have them winning 65-7, covering the spread, and I'm going with the over. Next matchup at 7:30 p.m. on ABC. We have number 7 Notre Dame Fighting Irish visiting number 20, the Texas A&M. The Aggies at home, College Station, tough place to play. The higher-ranked team, Notre Dame, is the underdog. We have the Aggies favored by 3 here, the over-under 46.5. This game just seems like it's going to be one of those slow offensive lines versus defensive line, trench-deciding games. It's going to be teams slowly, methodically going down the field, going 3 and out, and then at some point someone gets a turnover or someone hits a slant and takes one long, and that's what decides the game. Potentially there being not much scoring to the end of the third and the early fourth quarter. But Notre Dame, top 10 defense last season. They added Riley Leonard. He was banged up last year. He hurt his ankle. Will he be healthy? Notre Dame also adds Ken Denbrock, the offense coordinator from LSU, who got Jaden Daniels a Heisman last season. He's going to completely revamp and modernize this offense. The Aggies, they added Mike Elko as the head coach. Jimbo Fisher is out. They have a new offensive scheme. A very talented team, a top 10 overall roster versus Notre Dame. It seems like the Aggies are going to win. Notre Dame is replacing a lot of pieces on the offensive line. But I'm going to go with the upset here. I have Notre Dame winning on the road 27-24. I'm not confident in that. This game is pretty much 50-50. If either team wins 27-21, 24-21, I would not be surprised. I don't want to go anywhere near this game, but I have Notre Dame winning 27-21, So I do not have the Aggies covering the spread, but I will be going with the over. Next matchup, 7:30 p.m. on NBC, Fresno State playing number 9 Michigan. Michigan, with all the off-the-field stuff going on, they are favorites, 20.5-point favorites. The over-under 45.5. Very low-scoring game. Michigan's replacing all but one of their offensive starters from last year. They do have a very solid defense. Sharon Moore takes over as the head coach. Harbaugh's off to the NFL. Michigan will win this, but it's a very curious game because we want to see how Michigan adapts. They have almost a practically entire new starting team, new coaching staff. Can they live up to their top 10 ranking right now? But they are the defending national champs. I have Michigan winning 35-14, so I have them just barely covering that spread, and I'm also going with the over. The next matchup we're looking at, 10:30 p.m. on ESPN, New Mexico, who's 0-1 versus number 21 Arizona. Arizona 31-point favorites, the over-under 58.5. It's pretty high. So Arizona's replacing a lot of pieces coaching-wise. Obviously, Fish is off to Washington, but they have Fafita there. Great wide receiver core. They had a top 20 offense last season, a top 25 defense. Very solid, very stacked team, but they have a new coaching staff. Things might be kind of a little iffy this game starting out till Fafita gets comfortable. But once he gets comfortable, they're going to score. They're going to score in bunches. I have Arizona winning 44-10. I have them covering the spread, but I will be going with the under. And I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't cover that spread just because it's the first game of this team playing together in the new scheme. Next matchup we're going to look at Sunday, September 1st. So one of those weird Sunday games for college football, but it is week 1. At 7:30 p.m. on ABC, we have number 23 USC Trojans versus number 13 LSU. This game is in Las Vegas. LSU 4-point favorites, over under 64.5. This game has shootout written all over it. 2 of the top 5 offenses from last season playing. Both teams are replacing Heisman quarterbacks. Caleb Williams off to the NFL from USC. Jaden Daniels off to the NFL from LSU. Ken Denbrock is gone from LSU. Both teams fired their defensive coordinators. USC brings in Deontin Lynn, a very good defensive coordinator. LSU brings in Blake Baker from Missouri, also a very good defensive coordinator. These teams both had top 5 offenses last year and pathetic defenses. So this game is going to come down to whose defense is more improved in the shortest amount of time for this game. I have LSU winning it 35-30, covering the spread. I'm going with the over, but USC is more than capable of winning this. If they have the ball last, Miller Moss, Lincoln Riley, and they could go down the field, get that final touchdown, win the game. Who has the ball last? That's the biggest question mark, but I have LSU pulling out the win. And our final game, Monday, September 2nd, 7:30 p.m. on ESPN, Boston College versus number 10, Florida State, who's 0-1, obviously coming off of that loss to Georgia Tech in Dublin. They need to rebound. DJU has to play a lot better. Mike Norvell needs to open up the playbook, get a little more aggressive early, change the writings, basically. What's in the news? What's the headlines going on? As people are mad at Norvell, they're definitely mad at DJU, but this team is more than talented enough to rebound from a week 0 loss. We have Florida State favored by 16, the over-under 49.5. I have Florida State rebounding, getting the win here, 38-20, covering the spread, and I'm going with the over. So that's our breakdown. That's our best bets for week 1 of the college football season. As I mentioned earlier, make sure to hit that like button and also subscribe. Thank you. And also, feel free to drop a comment. If you do, I'll make sure to respond. Thanks.